So let's compare the specs of the Samsung Galaxy S25 and the Samsung Galaxy S24. Right off the bat, the price of the S25 will be $800, while you can get a used Samsung Galaxy S24 at around half the price. So we're comparing a brand new $800 new device with a $400 used, but still very capable, very almost new phone. So at first glance, both of these devices look exactly the same. Has been happening for years. The device just looks slightly different, maybe a little bit more rounder edges this time, but you won't be able to tell these apart just from looking at it. Everything usually is internal if any changes are there. Both devices are around the same size. Both devices weigh around the same, around 5.7, 5.9 ounces. So not much difference there, very lightweight. Build quality hasn't been improved that much. It's still very good. Glass all around, glass front, glass back, aluminum frame. Both of these have dual SIM card slots. It has the eSIM and the nano SIM card slot. So I like that. I like it that they haven't moved to fully eSIM only like the iPhone. So that's pretty good right there. Both of these still have IP68 dust and water resistance. Both are good for 1.5 meters for 30 minutes. So nothing's really changed there. Now for the display, same display, 120 hertz, very fast, 6.2 inches, very minimal bezels, 91% screen to body ratio, very similar. And they both have that nice always on display. Now for the software, both of these get 7 years of updates. The S25 will get that extra year. It starts off at Android 15, while the S24 started at Android 14 and now has the Android 15 software with the Samsung One UI. We're doing 7 on the S25, and the S24 will eventually get that 7 as well. Chipsets, very powerful, Qualcomm, Snapdragon. Processors, it doesn't really matter. It's just a little bit tiny faster. Snapdragon 8 Elite versus the Snapdragon 8 Gen. You're not going to notice a difference. It is tops when it comes to fast processors. So people that are into intensive apps, editing, video, all that stuff will work perfectly fine on both of these devices. Neither of these have a expandable storage for SD card slot. Both start off at 128 gigs, which is kind of sad. I like to see at least 256 gigs of internal storage, because even cheap free devices have that base 128 gigs. So you're not getting nothing extra on the storage front. Although for most people, 120 gigs will be perfectly fine. We do have the first major internal update on the S25, and that is that it finally has 12 gigs of starting RAM versus the S24's 8 gigs of RAM. For most people, you won't notice a difference in day-to-day app usage, but if you're very intensive with lots of apps running in the background, then you'll be glad to have that 12 gigs of RAM, and it will make this device feel faster in the future as well. Camera system hasn't really changed. 50 megapixel, 10 megapixel, 12 megapixel ultra wide, 8K video recording. It's the best camera you could probably get on Android. It's up there with the top iPhone and the top Google phone. So no difference there. Selfie camera, 12 megapixels, nothing's changed. Shooting at 4K. You still don't have that headphone jack, which is sad. A bump in Bluetooth 5.4 versus 5.3. Nothing's changed with the charging ports. Same USB Type-C 3.2 with the display port for mirroring. You do have the under the display fingerprint reader, which is ultrasonic, which is very fast. Same thing on both of these devices, no change there. You still have the same 4,000 milliamp battery, which is sad because I would like to see 5,000 milliamps, which is found on every other Android phone, even on the cheaper Android phone. So although you get through most of the day, I'd like to see that 5,000 milliamp battery be a standard on the flagships. As for charging, we have no changes. 25-watt wired charging, which will give you 50% in 30 minutes. 15-watt wireless Qi 2 charging, and 4.5-watt reverse wireless charging. No changes there, no upgrades. Now, I've had to say there's only one change that I've noticed throughout the theme in this review of specs on the upgrade of the S25 from the S24, and that is going to be an upgrade in base RAM, which is, it goes from 8 gigs of RAM to 12 gigs of RAM. That's in line with the Google phone now, which comes starting at 12 gigs of RAM. And I suspect this is only due to Samsung heavily using AI in its phones. And I think that extra gigs of RAM is the reason why this phone has it, is for AI functions. But that's pretty much the only difference in this device, is the 12 gigs of RAM. Other than that, great camera, great specs, great build quality. And the price, you're paying $800 versus $400. Now that's a big difference. So this is obviously, I think the S24 is still a better buy than the S25, because most people don't need that extra amount of RAM. So that's been my comparison of the Galaxy S25 versus the S24.